Yeah, you are.
Right.
All right,
You're
you're
looking
on.
tight.
This guy in the suit and tie.
Welcome to the Utah Senate Legislative Update. Just briefly, we heard a lot of House bills today. It's a House on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We hear House bills, and there was a number of those that were on our board today. Some of the first bills that come over from the House, or some of those have been done in interim, and so there's not a lot of discussion on them. They've been vetted quite well through the interim. Any other highlights? We had Abe Lincoln in to speak to us today. It was good to hear him and hear the Gettysburg Address. How was that first
I
hearing
missed
of
it.
that?
I was out on assignment from the president applying for money for some programs, so I was out trying to raise money.
Okay. So we'll just maybe go right to questions. Any questions?
President, Senator Dubakis today said he met with you and with the governor about SB 100. He called Republican leadership clueless on the issue. How would you respond?
I think we'll just respond the way we've been responding, is that it's important for us to know the environment with which we're going to be dealing with religious liberties and an anti-discrimination bill. And until we have some finality through our appeal process, it's really difficult to know what environment we'll be debating those bills in, and we feel, again, it's best to wait till that environment is more sure.
Yeah, the lawsuit was against the state of Utah, and obviously Judge Shelby's decision is an appeal, and the state of Utah is involved in that. But this, right now, we're not stopping. There's no prohibition or anything else on municipalities continuing on to hear that issue. So, and some have. We know Salt Lake City has, and others. So, I'm struggling as to why the effort's here and not with, others. And again, the president's exactly right. Until we know the results, and we've heard before that it's probably not appropriate that we start reacting to something that we don't know will be the final outcome.
Can you, though, continue to argue that those two issues are related, the anti-discrimination in jobs and housing and the same-sex marriage issue? The only relationship that some people see there is that the community protects. And do you really feel that those issues, are they related substantially? Are they related politically? What is the roadblock to considering SB 100 while you wait for the appeal?
Well, those are definitely, while maybe not directly connected, they're indirectly connected. And I think the element there that creates this difficulty is a discussion of religious liberties, which we've never had that discussion before. And that will be a discussion that needs to be had with the non-discrimination bills. And I think that the environment of that is unsure at this point until we know what our environment is until we get a decision from our appeal.
And my guess is that Salt Lake City has an ordinance in place, and I'm not hearing violations. Are you?
I don't know. It's just that a discussion on religious liberties will be a discussion that we best had, I think, when there's when we understand the environment in which we're going to be discussing that issue.
How would the non-discrimination bill infringe on religious liberties?
Well, if we could pass a religious liberties bill here that would circumvent every city ordinance and the non-discrimination bill.
Do you see that happening?
I think that's a big potential.
Let me answer how I have to a number of people who've asked me about it. I said, if you understood all the bills up here that are even remotely related on the issue, I think once we enter one, open one, we open the rest. It's pretty hard to say the rest. We're going to do one and not the rest. And once you do that, I think our session will be consumed in those types of pieces. And I don't think we ought to make the same mistake that I think Judge Shelby made by not staying the ruling until we find out exactly what our constitutional parameters are. So when people understand that there's just not one bill up here that's being held up, there's lots of bills being held up that are related in one way or the other to that. But I think they say, oh, I didn't understand that. All I read in the press is about Senate Bill 100. And I said, well, look at some of the House bills. There's a lot of House bills over there on religious liberty that are being held up by the House for basically the same reason.
Senator Jones?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Is it a bill I think ought to be heard? Yes, I've made that statement. That's my own personal opinion. I don't like name calling. I think name calling is detrimental to the service up here. In my 14 years up here, I have never seen the kind of tenor that our president has set forth in the Senate now. And I think it's important that we don't call names. So however you regard this issue, positive or negative, we can speak our own opinions. And I can tell you that was his opinion. My opinion is I think it ought to be heard, but I think we need to refrain from name calling. I don't think that's appropriate in this setting.
And I'm not sure I have heard any name calling. We hope that this will always be a respectful process, and we've emphasized that we welcome the protests. As long as there's a civil dialogue, we applaud that. So thank you. Other questions?
Well, yeah, how'd you like to talk about gas tax? Senator Valentine, SB 60, I guess, had a favorable vote in committee this morning.
It did.
Explain briefly, my understanding is that's a percentage tax on motor fuel as opposed to a specific per gallon tax.
That's correct. I've kept the tax within the excise tax system, which is the tax we impose on gasoline and diesel fuel. Those taxes are presently at a price per gallon, 24.5 cents per gallon on both fuels. What the bill does is it says, let's reduce the price per gallon down to 14 cents a gallon, but have the equivalent of percentage, which happens to be 3.69%, times the price of the product. This is still collected at the refinery, so it's not going to be collected at the station, at the pump. But it is a way to make our tax much more sensitive to price changes in fuel. That's important because those very petroleum products that we are using to fund the roads with, the user fee for the roads, increase in cost, and that's an increased cost to us for the asphalt that we actually drive on. So I'm attempting to get a closer match between the tax that we're receiving and the increased costs on the same product.
What's your feeling about its prospects in the full Senate now?
I think the full Senate is going to be favorably disposed to this particular bill. The bill is attempting to say we'd like to continue to have user fees as some component part of our tax structure when it comes to funding transportation. I retain that structure. The House has a different approach. We're waiting to see if the House can pass its approach to us as well. Candidly, the House approach is more robust than the provisions of Senate Bill 60. Senate Bill 60 does not raise taxes in the first year. It basically just recomputes a method that could raise additional revenue in the future if the price of the product increases, if the price of gasoline increases.
Senator Niederhauser, do you think that the Senate will be favorably disposed to changing the fundamental way we've collected taxes?
I think there's some favor in it. We don't know exactly the landscape in the Senate, but the unfunded liabilities that we're facing as a state in our transportation system are billions of dollars, and we're going to have to address how we're going to fund those in the future. This is at least, this wouldn't solve that problem, but this would be a little step towards solving that problem.
Income tax and sales tax inflates, and I'm not seeing a lot of opposition to that, even though we'd like to, hope that we didn't have inflation, but as inflation moves, those taxes move with it. So I'm not sure what the opposition would be.
We're also looking at SB 139 this afternoon in committee. That's Senator Harper's bill to increase the registration fees for electric, compressed natural gas, other clean vehicles. Is this part of the strategy to address those unfunded liabilities?
Well, it could be. It hasn't been, it's a concept that we hadn't even considered at all, or hasn't been something I've heard about until this year. So is it a long-term strategy? No. But could it, will it be an important discussion going forward? Yes, because as we try to deal with our clean air issues here in the Valley, and we go to more natural gas vehicles, as we go to more electric vehicles, how are we going to pay for the maintenance of our roads when there's no excise or gasoline tax coming in on those vehicles? So there's a threshold, obviously, and we haven't reached that threshold yet, but we need to have those discussions on how an electric car that has impact on the roads is going to help pay for the roads.
I drove one yesterday, and you probably saw it on Channel 4 News. I drove a pickup truck, a full-size pickup truck, and it was amazing. That pickup truck was a gasoline hybrid electric, and it was on the electric component of it. And we went up and down the hills here in the electric component of it, and it pulled the hills just like a big diesel would. And obviously, it didn't have any pollution at all because it was electric during the cycle that I was driving it. It was kind of impressive.
I think everyone wants us to try to convert, and I think we see the advantage of that. And again, with a lot of vehicles coming out factory built, so you don't even have to pay for a conversion. But the challenge is, like the president indicated, is as we make that conversion, we've got to find a way to pay for the infrastructure for them to drive on.
Senator Jones, there are some activist groups who say this is the wrong approach to addressing air quality issues. What's your view?
I had a town hall meeting Monday night, and this was a big issue for many of them. They feel like this is going the wrong direction. It's not a bill I'll support. I think, for air quality reasons, for that reason, but it's also, I think we need to go a different direction. So I understand what they're saying, but I don't think this is the right time to do that. I think we'll figure out other ways to fund the roads when we get there.
And Senator Valentine, your tax reform proposal, gas tax proposal, it doesn't crack that nut, I take it, right?
It doesn't really. No, it's just one piece in a very large puzzle that needs a lot of pieces fit into it. We talked with the governor's office about the wood burning during the inversions. We talked with the governor's office about Tier 3 fuels. We talked about other types of things with industry, including some of the things we have to do at the refineries. So all of those things are parts of the puzzle that contribute to our airshed and to the problems we have with clean air in our valleys.
But we just want to make an offer, bring a solution. How are the natural gas vehicles and the electric vehicles in the future going to help participate in maintaining the roads and building our roads? We're open to ideas. We'd like to know what the public thinks about that, because we are going to have to cross that bridge.
How about a per mile tax?
So that's an idea that's on the table.
Been talked about.
Should I open a bill file?
As long as you're wearing a tie.
It's an ST bill, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to make a comment. We had a town meeting, and a gentleman came requesting a number of funding programs for people and things that he was interested in. And he finished the meeting by saying, "And now you're going to talk about raising the registration fee of my car." And I said, you know, one of the problems you need to connect here is the only way we get money to spend is by taking it from somebody. And if you say we shouldn't raise your taxes and we shouldn't raise this tax and this tax, but spend more on me, I have a real problem with that. And I think the irony of it hit him, and he said, "Oh, I hadn't thought of it in that way." And I think the more money we can get from the user fee of gasoline, if that's what it is, or registration fee, and reduce the reliance of the transportation fund on general fund, and bring that general fund back in to where it was originally dedicated for, I think that frees up money for some of these other areas. And so it was interesting to me because he came clearly with the agenda that he wanted the state to spend more money on programs that he was interested in, but didn't seem to make the connection that we have to take money from somebody, including him, including me, including all of us, to pay for the programs.
Senator Jones?
I'm getting a lot of emails on this, and people are wanting more filling stations. They're wanting more electric charging stations, and until I think those are provided, that people are wanting to go that direction, but we need to have those available before they're actually committing to it. So I think we need, hopefully all of us can be leaders in that, to say, let's provide that.
Is that a potential funding mechanism then?
Well, I'm sure there will be, but I know there are, we have great natural gas facilities, resources in our state, and I know that they're working on those things. I think they'll come very soon.
Senator Adams actually one of the leaders on this issue.
Trying to get a bill file out. And again, sometimes it's tough to get them fully drafted, but it's hopefully be done not the end of this week, next week. But the idea behind it is similar to some ideas we had last session, and that is to add $1 a month to somebody's utility bill. And it becomes a donation because we allow them to opt out. So we talked to both Questar and Rocky Mountain Power. They're willing to do this. It's an expense to them, but they're willing to do it. They understand the need. But if it's done and it's widely accepted, it's probably anticipated to generate about $18 million a year. And again, it's not a tax. People can opt out of it. Check the box, and if you can't afford it, or you don't think it's been used for, or going to be used for the right reason, you can simply opt out. But we've seen a lot of proposals this year. We know that if we convert our buses, we can pay for that conversion within a 3-year period of time. It could be used as a revolving loan fund so that money could come back in and we can convert more buses. It could be used to help with some of the Tier 3 fuel conversions, be used for electric metering stations. And we have an interlocal we set up last time. We have a group of school officials, county officials, city officials, other government officials that can oversee and make sure the money's spent right.
Could you just comment about the infrastructure we have today?
Yeah, there's been a lot done as far as especially for natural gas. Questar has been a leader. You can drive pretty much all over the state and have your natural gas vehicle refueled. And we need to continue that. One of the reasons, one of the efforts with the bill is to make sure we continue those fueling stations, but we do it in as effective way as possible. So it wouldn't be smart to do it in every city, but if you can have the interlocal look at it, and you can build some refueling stations in convenient locations where multiple cities and counties and school districts can participate, you'll get the best use of those capital dollars you spend.
Utah's been a leader in this area of providing natural gas fueling stations, and I mean there's states where you would even begin to be able to have a natural gas vehicle because there's no places to fuel up. So.
If I could whiplash back a little bit to when you said that there was the bill, I think you were talking about Senator Reed's bill that would repeal all of this city ordinances, city non-discrimination ordinances. Is that a discussion you had in caucus? Was there a caucus position, or you just think there's a sense, is it your sense that there is support in the caucus to do that?
We have not had a discussion on that in caucus, no. But having been here for 8 years and understand the nature of the legislature, yes, I could see that happening.
And what would be the rationale for doing that now? I mean, I know there was talk about that originally when Salt Lake City passed it because they didn't think the city should do that, but have there been problems? Is it your sense that there are problems with the current ordinances, or what?
No, it's not intended to that. The intent is not to repeal the ordinances of the city, but the concern that we've had is that we could pass a religious liberties statute here that would trump what the cities are doing there in the environment that we're in with Judge Shelby's decision, and we feel like we want to understand the environment better through the appeal process, and we have felt that it's just a time to wait and address this at a time when it's maybe a little less emotional, as we've mentioned a number of times.
I think that the question was, how is SB 100 connected? And I think that makes the connection very clear and obvious. We either have to open it up for all the bills or we don't. And I think, again, until we know the results of the lawsuit that we're in the middle of, we just don't think it's healthy to do that without knowing the outcome.
Any others? Thanks a bunch.